Well, good morning, everybody. The local time is 8:44 in the morning. Welcome to the backyard here in Ellensburg, Washington. Our program on Karin Sigloch will begin at the top of the hour, about 15 minutes from now. But we're going to use the first 15 minutes here together just to say hi, do some thank yous, make sure that we're functional. The usual routine around here. Our session last time was less than 48 hours ago. Friday afternoon, we talked about Rangelia. And it's time to take a break from building terranes and to talk about some exciting new ideas. Are we functional? Good morning, Rini and Frederick, New Mexico. 5x5 says Frederick. Vancouver, Washington. Dean, Sarah's in Mill Creek, Washington. The Geekus in Alabama. Dayton, Ohio checking in. New Orleans, Pahrump, Nevada. A stormy coast of England, Portsmouth. Hello, Stephen. Thank you for the descriptive description. What? The Netherlands, East Texas, Marion, Virginia. Hello, Eric. Connecticut, a bunch of stuff flew by. Edmonton, another England. Jim is from Prineville, Oregon. A town in Ontario. Nashville, Tennessee. Salmo, BC. Wisconsin Rapids. Good picture and sound, says Bob. That's always nice to see. Very comforting. The sun hasn't quite broken over the neighbor's tree, but I think we'll get some sun here in a few minutes. It's 28 degrees right now, Fahrenheit. Half Moon Bay. Hello, Pat in Boise. Diamond Bar, California. Edmonton, Alberta. So I'm glad that the sound is fine. Yeah, we got snow on the ridges, but no snow in town over the weekend. I guess that was Friday night, Saturday morning. Templeton, California. Oh, Liz is back from the store. Great, wonderful. I got a bunch of thank yous. I continue to see the comments scrolling by, so I assume we're okay. Thank yous. I'm going to start with something we've been, a topic we've been experiencing or exploring together. I promise I won't do this every show. But a couple shows ago, I shared with you, because there was a theme to that program in the Alexander terrain and an immigrant from Northern Europe, and I talked about my great-great-grandfather, Nicholas, who came from Elm, Switzerland, and crossed the Atlantic and made it to New Glarus, Wisconsin, where all my people are, my cousins, etc., today. And I shared in that program two major mysteries that remained, past tense, remained in the family. One was what year exactly did Nicholas come over? We haven't been able to find that. And then what port? So I shared with you last show that I wanted to thank Patrick and Matthias in Switzerland, Patrick especially, who has all this amazing info. And Patrick said, the mystery is solved for your family. Monday, April 4th, 1864 is when your great-great-grandfather Nicholas left Elm. And we have his signature in the logbook in Elm. But he couldn't help us with the port, and he couldn't find a name. So thanks today to Margaret in Portland and Bart in Richland, in Tri-Cities, Washington. They're not related. Margaret and Bart. I got 2 separate emails from those 2 folks, and they said, we got it. Let me read you Bart's email. He watched, in other words, Friday's show and emailed, Saturday morning, I think it was. No, Friday night, just a few hours after we quit. Hi, Nick. I believe I have found the New York arrival manifest for your great-great-grandfather. There was an error in the transcript when they converted to digital of the original ship's manifest, which arrived May 4th, 1864. So exactly 1 month to the day after Nicholas left Elm, he arrived in Castle Garden, the port at New York, and he's listed as, in the digital form, M. Zentner, but the original document is definitely Zentner. The first initial hard to make out, but he was listed as age 27, born in 1837, that fits, and he listed himself as a miner from Germany. As I understand it, this is Bart talking, as I understand it, it was hard to leave Switzerland at that time, so he might have said he was from Germany, and the ship, the LL Edinburgh, left from Liverpool and made a stop at Queenstown, Ireland, includes Margaret. So that's the other mystery solved. Here it is. Isn't the internet an amazing thing? Here's the document, May 4th, 1864. And there's Nick's signature, or the clerk writing and kind of can't make that out kind of a thing. But I don't want to get emotional again, but I mean, this is yet another reason to do these live streams. You can solve mysteries that have existed for more than 100 years in our family. So thank you to you folks, and thanks everybody for trying to help with that. Wow, amazing stuff. Bottle of wine for Liz. It's empty. Bottle of wine for Liz, who can share it with Nick if she likes. She didn't, since she puts up with so much. Thank you so much, Larry and Karin, Western Washington University Geology alums, about my vintage. So thanks to you guys. She enjoyed the wine. Brogan from Seattle. Brogan remembers the Cinder Cone Volcano live stream where I had a hot air popper and I made a cinder cone using a hot air popper. And so Brogan made his own cinder cone maker and dropped off some beef jerky from Owen's Meats in Cle Elum. This episode of Nick from Home brought to you by Owen's Meats. You gotta love it. And a Patriot Power Cell, which looks like, man, I think I need my toque out here. Patriot Power Cell. Thank you, Brogan, very much. Sorry I missed you. Jeff from Vindman's brought over a bunch of t-shirts. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I already have mine. Liz has one. This episode of Nick from Home brought to you by Vindman's Bakery. You got to love it. And thank you for all the gift cards, all the Vindman's gift cards. I come in there with a whole stack of Vindman's gift cards, you know, like, I don't know how much is on this one. Let's, you know, they get a kick out of it when I bring that in. How we doing? I got more thank yous here. So, shipped from Savannah, Georgia. the Savannah Candy Kitchen. And this was ordered online by Timothy Kirk. Whoops, sorry, Tim. Sorry, Tim. In, I think you're in Bonnie Lake, is that right? Tim's in Bonnie Lake. Nick, I hope you and Liz enjoy the German chocolate cake. Best wishes, thanks for all you do. Thank you, Tim. And Tim actually sent in a field report video, which I will be sharing once we get to the North Cascades, but we're not quite there yet. So, you want to see the cake? Oh man, the weight's going to be going back on. We might have to freeze this and wait till we have some of our kids home. All of our kids home. I think that's how I got an extra 19 pounds last spring. Remember that huge carrot cake and some other things. So we sampled it, Tim. It's delicious. Savannah Candy Kitchen, was it? Thank you very much. And one more thank you. And one more thank you. I mean, I won't comment on how embarrassing it is to get all these presents, and I don't deserve all this, but you've already heard that from me, so I'll just enjoy these presents every day. There's something coming in. Professor Ned, you have been displaying some of the crappiest clipboards I've ever seen. Sorry, Patrick. Thought you could use some new ones. Maybe the lovely Liz could have for. These are made from recycled pallets, so please excuse the occasional nail hole or defect. Thanks for being who you are. Dave, age 71. So we have 11 new clipboards from Dave. And Liz already picked out hers. She's got it at school. So I'm going to put a couple to use this morning, Dave. Thank you very much. I think I do might want to grab my hat. That sun's not going to come over for another 10 minutes. We doing okay? Can I check one more time? Five by five. Yeah, to be honest, I'm pretty tricked out here now with, I'm going to jinx it, but I'm pretty tricked out with Townie Steve helping me out. So if I see buffering, I'm not going to be as apt to freak out on my end. I'll just assume it's you. So no offense, but I think the days of chasing around the backyard and doing this and doing that, as long as I see a bunch of 5x5s, I'm just going to be rolling with it. Okay, I got 2 minutes and I really I'm excited for this morning, but I'm also intimidated by this morning, and you'll see what I mean. And it's all brand new to me. So I got my little notes. Let's see how this one goes. I'm going to get my hat. Give me a couple minutes and we will begin. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hot mic. Okay, Karin, Mitch, Mahalanik, Sigloch, Mahalanik. Geophysics. Are you effing kidding me? I'm in the kitchen. Hot mic. What the H? There isn't supposed to be any wind this morning. Use a rock as a paperweight. Thank you. I didn't realize rocks were heavy. I need another 30 seconds, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, here goes nothing. Well, a pleasant good morning to you all. Welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. My name is Nick Zentner. I teach geology here at the college in town, Ellensburg, Washington, USA, Central Washington University. And we're talking about some research this morning that is tremendously exciting. Much of it brand new to me. I have my work cut out for me this morning, and this is a very different kind of a show, as you might imagine. It's named after a person, not a terrain, really for the first time. So I'm going to be concentrating extra hard, and let me say right up front that I suppose there'll be a moment or two, maybe more than a couple moments, where I'll go, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. Because I'm still trying to get this stuff to stick. It's not a disclaimer. I'm just letting you know that I've been learning a lot recently. You know, a pretty deep dive in the last 48 hours, but over the last couple of months I've been kind of picking up concepts here and there. And the payoff potentially is getting our mind, at least for a first pass, wrapped around one of the most exciting new developments in geology in Western North America. Now, it depends on who you talk to. But I'm a fan, and I'm excited officially. And my humble goal this morning is to at least introduce you to this brand new line of work. We have a new tool, essentially, to help us understand exotic terrain history. So to get rolling, let's actually Let's actually go to Mappy McMap and remind ourselves where we are. And I'm going to do this real quick because this could be a 3-hour show if I have a slow pace. So I got to make sure I stay nice and brisk. No problem with the weather this morning. Yeah. Hesitating already, for goodness sake. Mappy McMap. So I'm not introducing a new color this morning. We're not adding a new terrain, but we are taking a very quick look, especially for those that are brand new to us, to what we've done so far in the last half a dozen shows or so. What's with the wind, man? Well, look at what I have here, Dave. I have a brand new clipboard. Morning. All right, so I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on this, but I'm reminding you that we've been building British Columbia piece by piece, and I'm reminding you that we had some colors that we introduced for our series, and we do have the insular superterrane, the intermontane superterrane, and these terrain names are individual. There's a show for each of these. There's a live stream for each of these recently. Quinellia, Cache Creek, Stakenia, Alexander, and Rangelia. And these two guys are intertwined. These three came in together. We don't need to go through that again. And the two major dates we have settled on so far in this series, the intermontane superterrane, these three guys added to Old North America 170 million years ago. The insular superterrane added 100 million years ago. I still like that date. I was a little hesitant on Friday. I like it. I'm pretty sure I still like it. Now, these are events, accretion events that take more than 1 million years, but just for simplicity's sake, and you know that's my deal. I'm an introductory geology teacher, but I try my best to use new stuff, and we're definitely doing that this morning. So there it is one more time, a reminder color-wise on the map, and then a reminder in cross-section, cartoonishly, our story. Now, to this point, and I've said this a number of times recently, I have avoided oceanic plates. I've avoided names of ocean plates, what directions they were moving, where the trench was, what the subduction looked like, and there was a reason for it. There was a reason I avoided the ocean plate discussion. In other words, I avoided the conveyor belts that brought these terranes to North America. And I can't hold it. Now I will hold it. All right? So the reason is this morning. There's a completely new idea, set of ideas, involving the accretion of these terranes. Not the details, not the dates, not the rocks, but the mechanism for accreting the terrane material to the western edge of North America. Now, most famously in British Columbia where things are exposed, but eventually when we get to the North Cascades, which is starting next time, by the way. I'm going to the San Juan Islands, going to the San Juan Islands in Washington. So for those that have been patiently waiting to use your book, and you got it with you every time that we're watching these together live, we're using this thing. Read the section. If you want to read ahead, read the section on the San Juan Islands written by Darrell Cowan. Darrell's a co-author of this book. Darrell was with us, by the way, during the live chat on Friday, and I talked to him on the phone yesterday. He may be here again today. But Darrell is Mr. San Juan Islands train boy, and so we will go there finally to Washington and some exotic terranes in Washington. But the concept is, boy, we got a brand new, I don't think it's overstating it. We have a revolution right now in thought. Pretty much as exciting as the 1960s in a way, as far as what we're talking about here in the American West. And I think I'm going to start that way. My first Geology 101 class was in 1984, University of Wisconsin. And it was the first week, maybe it was the first day. And the professor basically said, I've been here at University of Washington since the 1950s. The 1960s were a tremendously exciting time. This is 1984 when I'm sitting in the lecture room. And he said, you missed it. You missed all the excitement. The textbooks were thrown out. We wrote new ones. The plate tectonic revolution happened in the 1960s and early 1970s, and you missed it. Now, I don't know if he actually said those words, but that was the message that I received. I remember kind of being bummed out, like, dang, I wish I was here 20 years earlier. Well, there is something going on right now. And many geologists who I've talked to in the last month are unaware of Karin, unaware of her work. If they've heard of her, they kind of have a general concept, but that's about it. And so I think there's enough here that possibly in 10 years, 15 years, this stuff we're talking about this morning will be used in the Geology 101 textbooks, which is my world. Okay, so there is a set of old ideas that many watching eventually will cling to, probably. That's how this business, this change of thought works, you know. And Karin is going to help us see some slab walls, I'll explain, down in the mantle. And then we will land on Karin's new ideas. Now, right off the bat, I have to say it's more than Karin. It's a team we're talking about this morning, but I didn't want to put two names on the show. It doesn't fit in my little chalkboard when I advertise these live streams. So Karin Sigloch from the University of Oxford, I wrote that somewhere. Doesn't matter. I'll find it. Karin Sigloch from University of Oxford in England, and Mitch Mahalanik from the British Columbia Geological Society or something like that. And Mitch has 30 plus years of mapping exotic terrains on our map. In fact, you remember the string bean and jackknifing the string bean and Cache Creek in between? And we talked about Joanne, but it was Mitch 30 years ago who's talking about these terrains and trying to work out these geometries. And here's Mitch with some work here in the Yukon, Alexander terrain and coming through the Arctic. Mitch is all over all of this bedrock. He's a field mapper. So we have Mitch from BC with all this kind of bang on rocks, bedrock geology experience. And Mitch is hooking up with Karin, who's from Germany originally, and she's coming from the world of geophysics. And I'll let this play out a little bit more in just a bit. So it's Karin and Mitch who are going to help us with this new set of ideas that I'm hoping to communicate. Now, I said I was going to be brisk and pace. It's already 10 after the hour. I'm still like introducing the topic. You know me, that's how this is going to work. We finally got some sun. I'm going to heat up a little bit and get excited. But I can't speed myself up too much or I'll start making a bunch of mistakes. So hey man, settle in. This is going to be a while. Okay, let's start with the old idea. Again, some will say it's still the idea. It's not an old idea. All right, well, you know I've been teaching for 30 years, and I have this course pack of all these hand-drawn sketches that I share with my students. And this, page 33, is on the final exam. Hey, are you a Geology 101 student of mine right now? This is our lecture tomorrow morning, turns out. And you're going to have to draw page 33 on the final exam. I don't even care if you understand it. You just have to practice drawing this thing. And that's how important this is. We're talking about Western North America, 40 million years ago, 20 million years ago, and today. And this is still viewed as accurate. So let's not get carried away this morning. This is still, I'm starting with kind of setting the stage of what I normally teach and what I might want to be changing in the next, I don't know, as soon as 2 weeks from now in my Geology 101 class here at Central. But I'm not changing this. This is recent enough, the last 40 million years. This is recent enough that we're not gonna monkey with this. But what we're looking at here is a map. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but this is a Farallon plate that's moving eastward and subducting beneath North America. It's a collision between the ocean Farallon plate and continental North American plate, and these X's are composite cone volcanoes. We have a volcanic arc and an oceanic trench offshore. Let me help you with a couple of cross sections to just visualize what I have been teaching forever and will continue to teach. Hey, I got another clipboard. I only got 9 more clipboards to go, Dave. Thanks. So here is that map again. And now we are to the old idea that if we go back 40 million years, that's fine. This view of old oceanic Farallon plates subducting beneath North America is totally fine. But what I've been teaching for a long time, and I'm going to change it, is that we have 180 million years of Farallon plate coming at North America. Now, do you remember what these black teeth mean? That means we have subduction of the Farallon plate diving beneath North America to the east. Eastward subduction. Let me pause and hit this hard. That What does that look like underground? It looks like this. West and east, moving Farallon plate. It's subducting, fine. It's subducting towards the east. It's diving towards the east, eastward subduction. Let me state very as clearly as I can what the old idea has been since I started learning geology in the mid-1980s. The old idea has always been the Farallon plate used to be absolutely huge. A simple, large ocean conveyor belt getting created at the East Pacific Rise, far distant from the west coast of North America. And here's this monster-sized Farallon plate coming at North America and subducting beneath it. Again, eastward subduction. What's this got to do with our A to Z series on exotic terranes? Well, as I've been teaching for 30 years, all you got to do is just get some exotic terranes on this conveyor belt and have those things come in. Bunch of chocolate chip cookies, just get the big lumps of dough on there and just bring those puppies right in. And as you subduct the oceanic Farallon plate beneath North America, forget this, you're just going to bring a bunch of those terranes in. Another sketch of the same thing. We're about to talk about ophiolites next week, or maybe a week and a half, kind of forget. But again, this is eastward subduction, another sketch showing the same thing. This is the old idea that has been around for 50 years. Now, just to introduce the concept, are all subduction zones in the world eastward subduction? No. Here's an example of a place where we have ocean plate moving west, diving to the west, westward subduction. So now I really can't hold it. Our new idea, and by our I mean Karin and Mitch's new idea, is that for a time, not the entire history of the last 200 million years, but for a time, we did not have westward subduction of a huge, simple oceanic Farallon plate. I'm cutting right to the main message of the entire program, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready to hear it again? This model is too simple. This model of one huge oceanic Farallon plate subducting eastward underneath North America for the last 200 million years is too simple. And we now have data in the lower mantle, thanks to Karin's work, to suggest that instead of this being like the Andes, instead of this being an always Andean margin, instead there was an archipelago of island arcs out in this area of the Pacific that was more complicated, but actually involved, I can't hold it, I was going to build to this, but I'm just going to do it. Instead of the terranes coming towards North America and adding to North America, the new idea is when we have had westward subduction, North America is approaching the terranes. I'm just going to say it verbally. You're driving down the road at a high rate of speed. It's an old deserted county road. You're really rolling. You've got a windshield on your vehicle. You're rolling down the road. You with me? Now suddenly we're going to get some baked potatoes to splatter on your windshield. Don't ask me why. Just play with me, would you? The question is, are those baked potatoes accreting to your windshield the result of the baked potatoes being thrown at your windshield as you drive? In other words, the baked potatoes are coming at your windshield. Or are the baked potatoes, the terranes, fixed in space, hanging. I don't know, are they in tinfoil? They're hanging out there in the air. And you're accreting the baked potatoes onto your windshield because you are coming at the baked potatoes. You're still going to splatter the baked potatoes on your windshield. But it's a question of who's moving. The new idea, and I'll show you the evidence for it, I can't just give you the idea and say thanks for listening. The idea, which is exciting new data in the lower mantle of our planet, makes a compelling case for the insular superterrane to be built out in the ocean and fixed, and North America approaching the insular superterrane as opposed to the insular superterrane coming at us. Before we get lost in paper shuffling and everything else, I'm hoping to convey that message over and over again this morning. And I really don't trust myself, to be honest. So I wanted to make sure we got there, at least verbally, and then we've got all sorts of images and other things to put together. Okay, that was a big moment. I don't know how much of it you got. Let's continue. Okay, old idea. What else do I have from folder 1, which is talking about the old idea? He asks himself. Right, okay. Now, the earlier days of excitement in the late 1960s and early 1970s, Tanya Atwater was doing some amazing work, and one of the most exciting scientific papers ever was published in 1970 by Tanya Atwater, no relation to Brian, by the way. And she was working with the seafloor of the Pacific and these magnetic stripes and working out seafloor spreading patterns. And the upshot of her work, which was tremendously exciting, was working out the fact that the San Andreas Fault is a thing, and here's the history of the San Andreas Fault. And I don't know, have you seen a map like this? This is a map of the seafloor of the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. And these colors are talking, there's going to be a lot of colors this morning, hang with me. The colors are talking about the age of the basalt on the Atlantic Ocean floor. And this was exciting in the 1960s, for sure, that the basalt on the Atlantic Ocean floor and then in the Pacific Ocean floor was discovered to be not all the same age, was not static, but instead the youngest basalt was formed in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and we know exactly how much spreading there has been in the last 180 million years on the Atlantic Ocean floor. That's important because we know exactly, because of this complete record of the breakup of Pangaea, we know exactly where North America is located at each little moment in time in the last 180 million years, based on this complete record. Now, what Tanya was saying is, look at this. We have spreading of the East Pacific rise actually faster than the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. That's why these color bands are wider. But the big message is, if we go back in time and send North America and South America back to Pangaea time, can you do that with me? Can we go back, and this is today, right? But if we go back in time 200 million years, there is no Atlantic Ocean floor. These guys are connected. And the point is, there was a lot more ocean crust this side of the East Pacific rise. In other words, this red to blue, 180 million years of sea floor, there must have been a matching red to blue that has mostly been destroyed. And you're like, well, how do you destroy ocean plate material? You frickin' send it down a subduction zone. Whether it's eastward subduction or westward subduction, you're going to destroy or consume ocean floor material. Now here's another way to say why this is so exciting this morning. I've always taught that when you destroy ocean crust, you truly destroy it. You send it down a subduction zone and it changes state, whatever that means, and it just kind of assimilates back into the asthenosphere. Are you aware that in the lower mantle we still have some of that subducted slab material? In fact, we have all of it. Let me repeat that. if we're destroying all this Pacific Ocean floor that was created at the East Pacific Rise, all the yellows and the greens and the blues that were clearly on the other side of the East Pacific Rise, where did that stuff go? Well, it went back into the earth. But did it get destroyed? We will see that those slabs are still down there. They don't just change state and just kind of magically convert back into the asthenosphere. They stay a rigid slab, and using the geophysics that Karin's been able to work out, we have visuals. So I'm ahead of myself just a little bit. Again, I want to make sure that you can see that this is still an accurate story, at least the most recent 40 million years. This is Tanya's 1970, very famous paper. And if you're like, I have no idea what I'm looking at, how can I orient this? I am orienting it correctly. So this is North America's west coast, 20 million years ago, North America's west coast, 40 million years ago, 60 million years ago, 80 million years ago. And Tanya, for the first time, introduced the Kula plate, which we still know it was a thing. But she has a migrating triple junction. She has the San Andreas Fault beginning. Not our topic today, but I'm not undoing all of that. Very important work. What I'm also not undoing, but I'm helping us see differently because of Karin and Mitch's work, is California geology. So of course, California people who have spent their whole career working on this very famous native arc story, that's the phrase used, that if you like the old idea of the old Farallon plate subducting beneath California for 200 million years or whatever, then you have the Franciscan Formation, this melange, the subduction complex. This is very westernmost California. Here is where the volcanoes, the volcanic arc with eastward subduction of the Farallon plate for a hell of a long time, more than 100 million years, the old model, more than 100 million years of eastward subduction of the oceanic Farallon plate beneath California. And hell, if it's in California, it must be everywhere, was the thought. This native volcanic arc, choosing my words carefully now because I still don't think I totally get it, but this native volcanic arc, where the Sierra Nevada mountains are today, by the way, if you're not sure where we are, the plutonic rocks of the magma chambers are now in the High Sierra, if you know Yosemite, etc. But my point is, we still, Karin and Mitch still have is this right? An eastward subduction to make the native arc of the Sierras, but it wasn't consistent in California. And you're like, just play along with me. We'll see if that can work. That's still fuzzy in my brain. It's one of the fuzzy parts of this presentation. But giving it the old college try. I'm going to try to keep moving. I'm going to pause, actually. Are we functional, first of all, and are we communicating at all? Do you feel like, basically, are we still communicating? Thank you. Okay. So you take a classic publication like this, A Streetcar to Subduction by Clyde Warhoftig, talking about eastward subduction of the Farallon plate, creating California geology. We are tweaking that. Let's get to the actual data and the concept and how it has anything to do with the insular superterrane, which is the whole reason for plugging this in here. I mean, we had a nice progress going with building these terranes and building Western North America, and I decided to put that all to a screeching halt and insert this Karin and Mitch show now. Why? Because it has everything to do with accreting the insular superterrane 100 million years ago. And again, we came to the insular superterrane. The insular superterrane did not come to us. What's the evidence? Talking about the fruitcake, by the way. From Collins Street Bakery. Thank you, Darth, Madison, Wisconsin. Whoo, baby. There we go. So I emailed both of these guys. The subject in the email was fan letter. And I got beautiful replies from each of them independently. And I'm going to share some of that email with you to give you a sense of kind of the personal touch on this and what they're currently working on. Here's Karin. Now, I don't want to overstate this, but geologists are tribal, like most of us. We have our little groups, we have our little associations, and oh yeah, I respect that person. Yeah, such and such worked with that person. And so Karin's kind of an outsider, more than kind of, actually. She didn't study geology as an undergrad. She didn't study geology as a master's student. She was an engineering student, electrical and computer engineering, and is so bright that she decided, well, I'll start working on geology for a PhD. So this is an interesting article from 2014. Karin Sigloch, geophysicist at the University of Oxford in England, grew up in Germany. Her career may seem an unusual choice for an engineering major, but Sigloch believes she couldn't have found a job more thrilling. After all, she is illuminating the very rock beneath our feet, a place just as dynamic and yet less studied than outer space. That's been one of my running comments in my classes. I'm like, we don't know anything about the mantle. I'm talking to my kids now over the last 30 years, my students. And I would always say, before I retire, it would be really nice to be able to communicate with you something that we know down in the mantle to help us understand plate tectonics. And I always remember this kid like 4 or 5 years ago, he's like, time's running out. Before I retire. He's like, aren't you retired yet? You're pushing 60, time's running out, bro. Well, here it is. So Karin moved to the US to work at Bell Labs in New Jersey. It was an incredibly creative, very heady, very fun time. She was working with cell phone technology. Bell Labs. Although the work satisfied her, she didn't think she wanted to spend her career studying cell phones. Here's a quote from Karin in this article. So I asked the lunch table, what should I do? Her colleagues pushed her to consider subjects beyond pure engineering. They said, you have to find a beautiful field for yourself, something that appeals to you on a gut level, she remembers. She took the advice to heart, considering doctoral programs in space, weather, and neuroscience before zeroing in on geoscience lab at Princeton. I mean, there's only a few folks who have that kind of brain power to just decide to go wherever they want and just excel immediately. And that appears to be the case here. There she could use her knowledge of waveforms to peer into the deepest recesses of the earth, places people had theorized about but never seen. I just thought that would be a great privilege, she says. I'm reading this because I don't understand geophysics at all. At Princeton, Sigloch perfected the computational techniques she would need to turn seismic signals into 3D pictures of the Earth's interior. And with help from her thesis advisor, Gust Nolet, she began developing new algorithms that could produce high-resolution images. To test them, the scientists needed data. The set of data they chose came from a grid of 400 movable seismometers called the US array, which was slowly making its way across the contiguous US. Beginning in California in 2004 and ending in 2014, seismologists began burying basketball-sized instruments in 2-meter deep holes where they remained for 2 years before being dug up and transplanted further east. When Siglock got a hold of the data in 2006, the array had scanned only the westernmost states, but that was enough to take a snapshot of what lay beneath. So it's not an accident that she decided to work out here in the American West. We had this US array with this geodetic seismology information about how earthquake waves are traveling through different layers in the earth, including the mantle. Okay, and then the rest is giving away the story. So let's do a very quick look at the interior of the Earth. And I have a prop, of course. So here's one way to do this. You know that there's a crust, a mantle, and a core inside of our planet. The moho is a boundary between the crust and the mantle. The crust is not all 70 kilometers thick. It's thinner in the ocean crust, but who cares right now? It's the mantle that, oh, this is going somewhere. In the mantle, our focus is the mantle, and it's really the lower mantle. So these are depths in kilometers below the surface, and we're going to be in the lower mantle, and I can't hold it. Here's one of the famous things that Karin was able to find in the last 15 years. A vertical slab of former ocean floor on the Pacific that's now hanging down there vertically, and it's squiggly like this. I think it's like 500 kilometers thick, this wall. She calls them a slab wall. Some people call them slab curtains. And there's a bunch of these things, but this is the one we're going to focus on. In fact, that's what this is on a map, but I'll get to it in just a second. And then here's the core, and here's the distance to the center of the Earth. We don't care about inner and outer core. We're just talking about this lowest mantle. So there probably have been amazing advancements in the lower mantle and seeing into the lower mantle and understanding what's going on down there, but I haven't been using it. I haven't been paying attention to that. And I only know about this work by Karin in her three-dimensional modeling of the lower mantle because it applies to the western U.S. and specifically the exotic terrain story. So I don't know if you have seen anything like this. This is kind of the old way that geophysical seismic models, I'm probably using the wrong phrase, are shown. Kind of 2D tomography. That's a big word for us today. Tomography is studying the inside of our planet indirectly by studying how seismic waves travel through different things in the Earth. And this is the traditional way of showing it. So it's a two-dimensional slice, which never worked for my brain, by the way. I would see talks like this, and I would just go blank when I would see something like this. They go, this is a depth of 600 kilometer depth, and we're taking a slice, and the blue are the seismically fast mediums, and the red are the seismically slow mediums. And I'm like, what? And then they say, well, the seismically fast stuff is subducted ocean material. I kind of like perk up, like, oh, okay. But I couldn't really see it. It's just a two-dimensional slice. I can't, like if you take a two-dimensional slice through a belly of an elephant and then you show them the slice, they're like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. Is that like a dog? Is that like a tree? No, it's an elephant. Can't you see it? It's like a two-dimensional slice. So using Karin's black magic, I have no idea how she's able to do it. And when we get to Q&A, I'll pass on all those questions. But using her engineering background, seismology, whatever, she has a new way to present what's inside of the Earth in 3 dimensions, three-dimensional tomography. And again, we're looking at colors. Now, these colors are different, and this is our first crack at it. I think she even changes her colors as the papers go on, so I don't know. There's a three-dimensional look at that. Okay, so I don't know. I brought an apple to show you the inside of the Earth. We don't need it. Okay, you've got the depth. What I will do, no, I will use that apple. Damn it, I brought it out. Every time I bring a prop out and then I'm ready to use it, I'm like, this is stupid. Why am I showing this? Everybody can see what I'm talking about. This is an apple. The apple is like the inside of the Earth. Ooh, ah. The apple has a core. I'm from Washington, right? There's the core of the Earth. We don't care about it. There's the crust of the Earth. We don't care about it. That's the thickness of the skin of the apple. We care about Should have brought a different color. I don't know, have you ever drawn on an apple with a Sharpie? I haven't either. It doesn't really work. What I tried to draw is the boundary between the upper mantle and the lower mantle. This is really not working, but why not? I'll try it anyway. Oh, shit. Sorry, Patrick. Screw it. There are vertical, I don't know, what do I have? Nothing. Pine needles. Okay. Who is this clown? In the lower mantle, it's not homogeneous. And as you look at earthquake waves traveling through the lower mantle, you can find seismically fast slabs that everyone, this is not just a new idea, everyone agrees is formerly ocean crust that has been returned into the earth but has remained a consistent slab, and it sinks all the way down to the base of the lower mantle. And it starts piling up. Like, what do you mean piling up? Well, this is not just a finger that's sinking, it's a whole plate that's sinking. But it's rigid. So we're subducting, now we're in fantasy land now, okay? We're having an ocean plate enter a trench. We don't care yet if it's eastward or westward subducting. It's going to start sinking vertically. That's a surprise to me. And then we get this sinking slab down through the mantle. It's still a frickin' slab. And I think it goes all the way to the very bottom part of the mantle, and then it starts folding on itself. I can't do it with my hand. I can fold it this way, and then I fold it that way, and I'm going to make like this ribbon candy almost, as we continue to have this vertical ocean slab diving through the mantle and then landing in the very bottom of the mantle. It's going to fold up. And I was like, I can kind of picture that. Where's folder 2? Hang on. Hang on, Patrick. I don't want to give too much of it away. But it's truly slab material that has sunk through the mantle and then it folds up like this. So these slab walls are thick, 5 times thicker. This slab wall or this slab curtain that was found, are they still there? No. Oh yeah. These slab walls in the lower mantle are 5 times thicker. I mean, they're vertical. They're 5 times thicker than the ocean crust was originally. So how do you explain that? Well, another prop. Have you gone to a self-serve frozen yogurt place? Thing piles up, right? I went there yesterday. I took some video of her doing it. You can't do it self-serve anymore because of the pandemic, of the virus. Makes sense. So she's like, you can't do it yourself. I'm like, what? Okay, would you please do it? So that's the best analogy I have for something coming down, a sheet now, not a single finger, but a sheet of material and piling up. And it's much thicker because of the piling up, because of the rigidness of the material. Also did chocolate, by the way. Basalt, you know. Okay. I think I'm done with the props. I'm not going to sweat that you're tuning out or like losing focus or whatever. I just got to keep rolling. But we're finally to the data and the imagery that Karin has been able to find. You ready? This is looking down. This is looking down on a map into the lower mantle. And this is one of the slab walls that today is beneath the east coast of North America. And there's another obvious slab in Idaho. Okay, so North America, from Canada down to the Caribbean essentially, down, we'll just call it the East Coast slab, and then this Idaho slab. Let's look at the Idaho slab first. It's easier to understand. Colors now from Karin in some of her papers. So this color is just talking about depth. Here's what I mean by three-dimensional tomography. So this is the American West. Ignore the Yellowstone hotspot, even though you probably want to be fixated on it. Let's just try to ignore it, please. The point is, this slab wall in the lower mantle, what I'm calling Idaho, she's calling it a cascade route. It doesn't matter. It does matter, but let's keep our verbiage as simple as possible. She has been able to connect that Idaho slab curtain or slab wall all the way up to today's Juan de Fuca plate, which is today subducting eastward beneath the Pacific Northwest. So this truly is Farallon slab, as she calls it. Now, I just have to say very quickly that I've been working with the Kula reconstructions 6 months ago, and I wonder how much of this is Kula. It doesn't matter for us. Okay, so this is connected to today's eastward subduction. I mean, Patrick gave me a beautiful map, no, cross section. I mean, we do know that this is a real thing today, right? The eastward subduction of the Juan de Fuca plate is going beneath, oh God, the wind's picking up, is going beneath the Pacific Northwest and diving. And we have all sorts of earthquake evidence along that plate margin, the great earthquakes of Bryan Atwater, etc. That's all, nobody's arguing that we have this. And the question is, what happens to this when it goes very, very deep beneath the crust and even into the mantle? And the answer is the image I just showed you, which has blown away. Okay. But there's another slab wall. You ready? This is the good stuff. This is the excitement. If this is a slab wall beneath Idaho, is that it? Hey, I just found a $20 bill on the ground. So here's the Idaho slab wall that continues all the way down to the lower mantle, and this is the quote-unquote Farallon plate. But if that's the Farallon plate, what in the heck is this thing? It's not at all to this Idaho slab. Another image of the Idaho slab going from Juan de Fuca all the way down to the lower. Isn't this amazing? I don't think anybody really was able to see this subducted slab going all the way down to the core mantle boundary. Okay, this one's going to be a struggle, but I want to show it to you anyway. Oh, let me do it this way. So I'm going to show you a little YouTube clip of Karin speaking to a group of geologists in 2014. And she does this, and I'm going to try to do it verbally with you right now. Why didn't I draw North America on this thing? You'll see in just a second. But I'm telling you verbally that this is basically underneath New York City, east coast of North America, right? And this thing's underneath Idaho. So this image I'm about to show you from one of Karin's students' most recent papers is basically hovering out here and looking from a Goodyear blimp westward over the continent of North America, but peering down into the lower mantle. What? Say it again. We're going to look this way with this image. You're like, oh my God, what am I looking at? Well, just for a second, let me turn it to something that you recognize. Here's Florida. Here's New York, Cape Cod, Newfoundland. Okay, that white line is the east coast of North America's continent. But do you want to keep it like this? We can do that. Here's this slab curtain so deep beneath North America, and then here's the other guy, the Idaho slab. So you're like, and it's a little bit different in Canada versus southern U.S. But I feel like my gut feeling says I got to cut to it. So here we go. What is this slab if it's not the Farallon plate? That's the key message of this whole talk. Is there an explanation for this other slab that's bigger? It's a longer curtain. This is thousands of miles long, sitting down there. It's not connected to the Farallon slab, so what in the world is it? First of all, here it is in cross-section. Okay, so we're not picking a specific time now. We have the, I'm looking at this backwards, but hope it works. This is New York City over here on the east coast of North America. Here's the west coast of North America. Here's this thing, like, huh? Question mark, I don't get it. And here's the Idaho slab curtain that's connected to the subduction of the Juan de Fuca plate that continues. And notice that this thing, again, color is depth. So we're into the lower mantle. This is the upper mantle. Notice that in the lower mantle, the Idaho curtain is vertical, and then it kind of smears as North America is drifting over the top. We're finally to the demonstration that I have in mind, and I'm going to soldier on, regardless if we're feeling comfortable or not. You've tried to visualize it mentally. Maybe I can help here. To be honest, I forgot I had these. So here's the what we'll call the East Coast slab curtain in the lower mantle. And here's the Idaho slab. That's the Cascade Root slab that's connected to what's going on offshore today. And here, it's upside down. The same two slabs, the slab walls, but obviously this thing over here is a cross section. And I'm trying to set you up for the main message before we kind of back away from the real hard thinking here. We're still wondering, what is this thing if it's not the Farallon thing that's subducted? Like, remember, the old idea said that we had a continuous eastward subduction of the Farallon plate for 200 million years. So why don't we just see a huge kind of angled slab of Farallon and nothing else? Why do we have this whole other thing which is even bigger than this thing? And deeper, I might add, and does not have a connection to a subducting plate today. All right. Hopefully a few of you are ahead of me. But just in case you're not, Whiteboard just fell apart. Remember that we know where North America was on the planet precisely at different snapshots of time since Pangaea started to break apart. And so North America may very well be sitting on top of these two slabs today. But what if we go back to the time that we're actually bringing in exotic terranes? Do you remember the timing that we had? Earlier than 100 million years ago, right? The work we've been doing with British Columbia exotic terranes, the intermontane, the insular superterrane, those were added 170 million years ago and 100 million years ago. Well, where was North America 170 million years ago? And the answer is out here. North America. This thing's North America now, okay? New York City is over here on the east coast of North America. So if I go back to 170 million years ago, that slab is diving vertically out in the Pacific. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought this was the East Coast slab curtain or slab wall. It is, because today North America is sitting like this on top of it. These things are almost like hotspots. What do you mean? They're not exactly like hotspots because they have their sheets instead of individual points, but they are like hotspots in the case that they are fixed. Once these slab curtains get established, once you start pulling down on the handle and the frozen yogurt starts piling up, that has a momentum of its own, and if you move a plate over the top of it, it's still a vertical slab that's deep, a vertical slab curtain or slab wall that's deep. Just in case you're still with me, let me say it one more time. We have, for the first time, I'm going to say it differently, I'm going to get really excited now. Damn it, I want to rip off my clothes, I'm so excited. Here we go. Using paleomagnetic evidence from 50 years ago, Merle Beck, Ted Irving and others, there was excitement among a certain community because the old latitude, the old potential latitude of an exotic terrain was being documented by the paleomagnetic signature of the magnetite grains inside of a plutonic igneous rock. Oh, what's that? What do we got? Okay, well, we got a granite that must have crystallized either 17 degrees north latitude or 17 degrees south latitude. From paleomag, all we can do is get a former latitude of that exotic terrain in the Pacific somewhere. Kind of the same with fossils. I'm talking about 40, 50 years ago. What's that? We got coral reefs in this limestone, in this exotic terrain, the Cache Creek or whatever. We have to be at a certain latitude closer to the equator. Do you realize what we're doing here for the first time with Karin and Mitch's work? We're actually able to come up with a former longitude. Not latitude, a former longitude of some of these exotic terrains out in the ocean. You're like, I don't see how you're doing that. Well, let me try again. North America, 170 million years ago. By the way, which Karin and Mitch agree must have been an eastward subduction. This is advanced now, I'll just keep rolling, what the hell. Eastward subduction of some sort of ocean plate giving us the intermontane superterrane. The Twins and Cache Creek in between, eastward subduction. But here, I'll show you a diagram in just a second. With this guy, that's recording an ocean trench out in the Pacific at a fixed location. And by moving North America closer and closer to that fixed trench out in the Pacific, we can eventually accrete the insular superterrane, that's Wrangellia and Alexander, onto the windshield of our moving car. This is different than the old story. The old story says all these terranes are going to come and add to the edge of North America. North America is moving west, but we've got a moving ocean plate eastward and eastward subduction. Karin and Mitch are saying no. Between 170 and maybe 80 million years ago, I'm probably off a little bit on those dates, but let's say roughly for 100 million years, we did not have eastward subduction of the Farallon plate. Instead, the ocean floor between intermontane and insular, the ocean floor was connected to North America. And the ocean floor was subducting into an ocean trench that was fixed in the Pacific. So we're still going to accrete the insular superterrane. Of course we are. It's there. We're going to accrete it 100 million years ago, but we're going to accrete it by the windshield plowing through the baked potato, the super baked potato, as opposed to the opposite. You're like, you've lost me completely. Let me show you a diagram from my notes, which is coming directly from some of Karin's papers, and then we'll back away just a bit. Fixed. $170 million years ago, the intermontane has already accreted, has just accreted to old North America. But this model says, starting 170, we have westward subduction of an ocean floor that was connected to the North American continent, not the old Farallon plate subducting the other way. And notice we have our insular superterrane out here in the Pacific. And you're like, why is this a leap forward? Well, we can prove where it was. We can prove where it was because directly beneath where that insular used to be is a slab wall, which is today the East Coast slab wall. But back then, when North America was much further to the west, when North America was much further to the east, we had this thing started up as a fixed frozen yogurt flow. By 100 million years ago, we have moved old North America substantially, and we have consumed much of this ocean floor crust. Where did it go? It's down there. It's still there. We still have it. It's just more stuff that we've added to the frozen yogurt cup. And then by 75 million years ago, we begin true eastward subduction of the Farallon plate or Kula plate. But the point is we have eastward subduction. So eastward subduction earlier than 170, eastward subduction younger than 75, that's the old story. But between 170 and 75, roughly 100 million years, there's a compelling case for westward subduction. You say, I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. Well, how do you explain this thing then? It's there. How do you explain it? Angry suddenly. I don't know why. That was the heavy lifting portion. I don't know where we are. Meaning, I don't know where you are mentally. I'll just try to flash forward a couple of things and then we'll go in the cozy fort after I read a couple of emails. So here's a Technicolor version of what I was just trying to do with you. This is from a brand new paper, a paper that came out this year from one of Karin's students, Edward Clenett. So here's those same time frames with the old story and the new story. And Eldridge Moores and others proposed kind of this archipelago idea out in the Pacific off coast of North America, but did not get much traction. That without any knowledge of the lower mantle. He had other reasons from the geology of ophiolites and other things that allowed him to visualize this. And the whole idea is we're actually just consuming a bunch of ocean basins. Like there's like more than 10 separate ocean basins that were between scraps of island arcs that are gone, but they're not gone. They're either down in the lower mantle or parts of it got abducted onto the edge of North America. We'll look at that in the North Cascades and other places. Now I'm just like assuming we have a semblance of what this is, so I'm just sharing. This is all from Edward Clenet's. Let me get that paper for you. So this is the newest paper from Karin's group. And that animation I showed you last time, and I'll show it again to you today, is from Edward. So I don't know, I'll just do this quickly. They've got the tomography stuff. They've got the plate reconstructions. Here's North America with New York City. That's me drawing that. So I'm just going to do this quickly because we're already past the top of the hour. You're like, I don't know, I can't see this. Can't you do an animation? Edward did. And another one by Henderson in 2014, also Karin's former student. Remember the main goal here. The main goal was to, first of all, let you know that there's a brand new set of ideas that are in the face of the old ideas involving American West tectonics and therefore implication on how exotic terranes were accreted, how they accreted, not when, but how they were accreted, using Karin's geophysical work and Mitch's encyclopedic knowledge of exotic terranes all up and down the west coast of North America. What's this? It was these guys that were, and actually Eldridge first came up with it, but the idea that you can look at Australia today and make a connection to what this archipelago thing looked like. This is really clever. I think this is Edward's paper. So you might just pause this and take a look at it, but it's making comparisons between Australia today, North America back then, and the idea that you're driving the continent into a bunch of baked potatoes that are fixed out there as opposed to the baked potatoes coming to you. It's like, how bad do you want the baked potatoes? You going to come get them? Because they're not coming to you. And here's just one of the images, of the many images that show North America drifting west and first encountering that ocean trench at about 140 million years ago. I'm doing the best I can for you, man. I understand this is challenging. I'm going to finish, if I can find it, by sharing a couple of the, oh man, I got to find it now. I've built it up. Well, there's a brand new thing from Karin who's replying to critics of her new work. But I definitely have to find these emails. Give me a second, would you? Hang on, Patrick. There we go. I'm having fun even though this is heavy lifting for me. I didn't even check my notes. Give me a second. Yeah. Oh. Just the shape of this, maybe you're bothered by the reflection on the chalkboard, I don't know, I can't help you. Just the shape of that slab wall, this shape looking down on the slab wall in the lower mantle is this shape, right? It doesn't mimic this coastline of North America. Like if you want to argue that this is old Farallon that has subducted and now is underneath North America, is almost coming out the other side, by the way, shouldn't it mimic the shape of the trench? It doesn't mimic it. So instead, this is a relic of the position of the ocean trenches that used to be west of North America. I understand this is a challenge to visualize. Oh, I feel like it. Before I get to the emails from Karin and Mitch, so here's, I don't know if you're aware, but you have papers that are published, everybody reads them in the little scientific world, and then occasionally, if you're sufficiently ticked off, that's probably the wrong way to say it, you publish a comment, which is like a rebuttal. This is Karin and Mitch, 2020. You can read the whole thing if you want. It looks like this. I'm not a confrontational guy, but I kind of enjoy reading stuff like this. Pavlis, published in 2019, assert that geological and geophysical interpretations lead to fundamentally different conclusions regarding the dipping of the subduction along the Cordilleran margin during the late Mesozoic time. Their paper is a call to defend a model of uninterrupted eastward subduction beneath continental North America, which we refer to as always Andean style model, from purportedly contradictory geophysical observations. Our own work, this is Karin and Mitch, shows that no such contradiction exists. Neither geology nor geophysics supports always Andean style subduction since 200 million years ago. Instead, both record a Juro-Cretaceous period of simultaneous eastward and westward subduction under a vast archipelago in northeastern Proto-Pacific, analogous to today's southwestern Pacific. Welded into westward subducting lithosphere, North America was pulled into the archipelago and diachronously, I can't pronounce that word, not at the same time, overrode it from 155 to 50 million years ago, accreting its arcs and microcontinents. Whoa, 50? Oh shit, is Silesia part of this? I want to go on, but we're running late. So I promised I'd share a little bit of the email response that I got from Karin and Mitch, because I think it adds a little personal touch to this. So 2 weeks ago, I sent individual emails to both Karin and Mitch. I'd never met either of them. They have no idea who I am. Karin replies, "Fan mail is a pleasure, obviously. Our conclusions about Wrangellia in the archipelago don't meet with universal approval." Mitch, "It's always nice to receive fan mail, thanks. It turns out when you revive a half-century-old model from the formation of the North American Cordillera because it is supported by new tomographic details, most mail that one receives is not by supportive fans. We've still got a lot to learn before we can readily or reliably read the mantle, but the prospects of being able to do so are very exciting. A big impediment is incomplete global coverage and difficulties in evaluating the reliability of tomographies, that's the deep mantle stuff, and especially in distinguishing between artifacts and real velocity structure. Karin and Mitch, if you eventually see this, I hope you're okay with me sharing your email. I said to Karin, "I'm doing a new session called Karin Sigloch." She said, "That's flattering, but I'll just note that these investigations have been very, very close collaborations with Mitch Mahalanik, who has a skill set that is very different and complementary to mine, and who was prepared to invest the significant time we needed to develop a joined-up way of thinking. The crucial and challenging thing about this research is to understand the uncertainties inherent to the various disciplines involved. And it's Mitch who decided that, because I couldn't, On close reinspection of geologic observations, one could separate Wrangellia from the intermontane superterrane for longer than usually asserted. By the way, if you're curious about the timing of this, and I'll show you that segment of Karin's talk in just a second in the Cozy Fort, she has an average sinking rate of these slabs in the lower mantle of 10 millimeters per year. I don't know where that comes from, but she's done some math to figure out that there's a real steady sinking rate of 10 millimeters a year, and therefore you can get these trenches located properly if you go back in time. I asked Mitch, how did you connect with Karin, and are you still working with her? This is 2 weeks ago. Mitch says, back around 2011, I was struggling to understand why a belt of massive molybdenum copper porphyry deposits like the Climax, the Henderson, the Bingham sit so far inboard of the active continental margin. It seemed like mantle tomography might provide some clues. After scanning the literature, looking for what I, as a complete outsider to tomography, would consider the best regional study, I singled out Karin's work. I emailed her. She was then at University of Munich in late 2011, and we found out that our interests were highly complementary, but we needed to figure out how to read the mantle first. It was really exciting, discovery-laden work, and by the end of 2012, we had cobbled together a paper in the journal called Nature without having yet met each other in person. My original question about linking the giant porphyries with the mantle remains unanswered, although it is part of a growing to-do list that we continue to collaborate on. You may be interested in our most recent paper by Edward Clinette. Hey, by the way, this is Mitch. If you're speaking with your pal Jerome Lessman, remember last show, please pass along a hello. His invitation to speak at VIU Geology Department led to a very pleasant afternoon with super engaged students. I was not expecting such informed inquiry from college students. It clearly speaks to the motivational and educational skills of their instructor. Nice job, Jerome. I'm going to do a little bit more. I told you should settle in. I had a couple questions for Karin and Mitch. And she says, you ask very pertinent questions here. And Mitch said, I don't usually share compliments, but this is a big one for me, so I'm going to share it. Hope you don't mind. Mitch, who's got a long career in this game and is a high-powered thinker, says to me, obviously, your content, he's talking to me, your content and own interests are cutting edge. In your email, you've asked the key question about how the mantle might inform us on the evolution of the Mesozoic intermontane superterrane. Only a couple of other colleagues have bothered. Thank you. I'm going to show you a clip from Karin's 2014 talk. And I asked both of these guys, you don't have slabs in the lower mantle from the closure of the Slide Mountain or Cache Creek oceans. Do you guys have that now? If yes, does that change the jackknife look of the intermontane, the string bean? Karin, yes, we have recently obtained much better resolution of deeper slabs, and they are plentiful, but we remain unsure what the correct interpretation is with respect to the older evolution of the Cordilleran. The first order observations are that there is abundant slab below the slabs we have been interpreting, below 2,000 kilometers depth, but in quite different configurations, meaning there would have been a predecessor archipelago to the archipelago that we have been interpreting above 1,800 kilometers depth, and between the two there was a considerable reorganization. Presumably the insular superterrane would have always shuffled around in this environment. By the way, she's got a lot of things she has to do, and she took the time to write this wonderful email. But that older archipelago should have been, is it archipelago or archipelago? Archipelago. Should have been as far offshore Pangaea as the younger one. And that looks like a problem for explaining the native Triassic-Jurassic arc in the southwest US while attached to Pangaea, which Mix thinks of as linked up with the native arc. That's maybe negotiable. On the other hand, there's a very deep slab under the central Atlantic in a suitable location to explain the native arc along western Pangaea. Is anybody still with us? But it's deeper than we expected. Okay, we're back and forth, back and forth. I'll finish with this. There's still Karin. We are currently most excited about the prospect of establishing an absolute reference frame that goes back 250 to 300 million years, equivalent to the ages of the deepest slabs, using slab piles and relatively confident geologic knowledge in completely different regions of Pangaea. So they're going other places now in the world. They're not just sticking with Western North America with this new technique. This major effort will take a while, but once we've convincingly established such a slab reference frame and shown its consistency with hotspots for the past 120 million years, then we'll be in a much more solid position to return to address the older Cordilleran slabs. I can't stop. If the American slab walls had been imaged back in the 1970s, I don't think the narrative of an always Andean margin would have gained such traction. Eldridge Moores used to say it was an example of a hypothesis that went right on to dogma, skipping the intermediate testing stage, though he had a funnier way of saying it. Okay. We're just going into the cozy fort now, and it's 10:20. We may be here till after 12 noon. Should have brought a sandwich. If you're still with us, congratulations. We got almost 900 people. That's great. We're going in the cozy fort, damn it. It's worth it. We got a couple things to show you there. You should meet Karin through the magic of YouTube. And then, why not? We'll do some live Q&A with the guy who knows nothing about geophysics. Should be fun. Hot mic. Cozy Fort by Steve. Boy, that was hard. And there are parts of this that I think we'll revisit. I'm thinking out loud now. I'm still trying to grasp some of the basic messages from this work, especially how it impacts what we know about the North Cascades, let's say. So I think I might continue to try to use some of this in our remaining sessions into early December, but I'm not quite sure how we're going to do that yet. I'll also be very interested to see the reaction to this show. Like, oh my God, for the first time I was completely snowed over and I had no idea what you were talking about for half of it. Or, that's all bullshit. I don't know why you spent a whole period on that. That's phony pseudoscience. I don't know. I'll be curious, especially from fellow geologists and their reactions, but yours as well. I hear a voice. I don't know who it is. I'm going to pretend they're not here. Okay. Oh, it's a loud pedestrian. I mentioned Eldridge Moores back in the 1970s and 80s. He came up with the idea, among others. Somebody had the foresight to videotape him on a field trip in California. This is on YouTube. Shit, hang on.
Let's start with the big picture. I'll just say a couple of words about this, but I didn't bring the map of the world. Okay, so obviously this is the tectonic map of Western North America, and I think you can see the black blobs on the map. Those are ultramafic rocks, and you can say, in effect, they're ophiolite complexes of various ages.
We'll be talking about them.
This one here in the Klamath is probably the oldest one on the Western North American continent. It goes back to the late Precambrian. The rest of these are, this one here is lower Paleozoic in age, down in the Cahuilla Belt, down in here. And then the rest of these are mostly Jurassic, mostly Mesozoic in age. Although there's some rocks over here in Nevada that one could call ophiolitic rocks. And I think, in fact, one can make an argument that there is another belt.
I just wanted you to meet him on YouTube. He passed away during a field trip, by the way, a handful of years ago. And I always enjoyed listening to his talks at a GSA conference, for instance. I sent him a fan letter by email. And if you're like, I think I know that name, Eldridge Moore. Well, he was the main topic in Assembling California, written by John McPhee. And so in addition to complimenting Eldridge on his work, just a few months before he passed away, by the way, I asked if I could get an email for John McPhee because I wanted to send him a fan letter. He said, oh, he doesn't do email, but here's his address, mailing address. So I heard from McPhee a little bit. But Eldridge had those concepts of the archipelago offshore. Even though he's kind of from the old guard, he was thinking forward. And it's too bad he's not able to enjoy some of this now. Karin, the only YouTube of her that I could find from a talk that she was giving in Barcelona in 2014.
Thank you, Daniel and colleagues, for this invitation to Topo Europe. This is a talk about continental growth in North America. It's made possible largely because North America has been so well instrumented seismologically in the first place over the last decade. But as motivation for Europe, I might say these processes that I'm going to talk about here, crustal growth in the Mesozoic, happened in Europe like that in the Paleozoic. And maybe one day we will be able to reconstruct what happened in Europe with the methods presented here.
Okay, it's a 30-minute talk. The title of this, you can find it on YouTube, Barcelona 2014 Topo Europe Continent Arc Collisions. Maybe somebody can put the link down below. So it's a 33-minute talk, and I think I've watched it 10 times, taking all sorts of notes, and it was just so gripping the way she laid it out in such plain English. But I want to, let's see, let me find the sinking part, because I don't understand that very well. We'll start here. Hope it works.
Folded thing suggests that this might be plausible. So these might be older than we thought. And these might have been built by trenches that were intraoceanic rather than along the coast here. And because they were intraoceanic, they could sit stationary in the ocean, and they didn't have to migrate as a trench along this coast would have migrated. As we know, the continent migrated. So the prediction that needs to be tested here then is these were long-lived stationary trenches that sat here in the Jurassic and subducted in this direction because there was this open ocean between Pangaea and these trenches, and they were made from the plate, the tectonic plate that subducted into here as North America would come in and override these trenches and any arcs and other oceanic material accumulated above them. So as a cartoon, this would look like this in the Jurassic. We have a trench sitting here in the ocean, and it can sit stationary. In fact, it's probably stabilized by this slab. Once this is in the lower mantle, it's quite inert, and it won't move back and forth. It'll just sink. So it'll sink vertically, and as this ocean closes here and North America moves in, this slab gets deposited. This also makes a prediction of what happens next. So this one we just saw, this is while this trench and arc are active, but at some point this ocean has closed, and this is shown here. And then this subduction must stop, meaning it stops building this slab wall. We get this sharp upward truncation, which we did see under Canada. I pointed that out. And it also means this arc now stops. So there should be a date on this. And what happens next, though?
I could
because
go
as we
on,
know,
but
North America kept moving. Now, at the latest,
You
this
can watch
plate
that on
is
your own.
here, which is the
There's also an amazing website. Oh, the wind's picking up. I'm going to lose everything. Atlas of the Underworld. That's a great spot. Great title. So there's tons to learn and absorb from that website. What else do I have? A couple other things before we go to the Cozy Fort. I've shown this forever in my classes. I think it's Tanya Atwater's original animation. It's kind of soothing. I put it on a loop. This is Eastward Subduction of the Farallon beneath the west coast of North America, which I want to reiterate is totally accurate, younger than, well, more recently than our topic today. But during the insular superterrane, I don't see the geology evidence, and I think there's been always some issues, always some kind of problems with the geologic evidence in the North American continent to support a long-standing eastward subduction of the Farallon Plate. By the way, Karin's talk includes some question and answer at the end in that 2014 talk, and there's a couple of dudes who are basically pushing back and saying, you know, there's no way. So she's faced a lot of, well, that's the way science works, especially if you're trying to do something drastic. Oh, this might be fun.
I appreciate you playing along. Okay, I think I do have a request now. So with this one, can you kind of hold the dish steady underneath the chocolate and just kind of let it kind of hit constantly, and it'll just kind of look weird, but that's totally fine. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
She was a good sport. I tried not to be creepy about it. I'm a teacher. I'm a geologist. I'd like to videotape you. It's like, whatever, dude. We can't have this session in the Cozy Fort without showing you one more time what I showed you the last couple programs. This is Karin's student, Edward. Came out this year. Orange is insular. Purple is intermontane. But if you look carefully at the teeth, there's eastward and westward subduction on both sides of the insular for a while. And then again, there's something called Baja BC, which does work with this new set of ideas. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with Baja BC, you'll have to wait. But we can lump Merle and a bunch of Baja BC people in with the new set of ideas. And the tomography, the lower mantle, is helping to confirm some of those ideas as well. Basically, I'm trying to show you North America coming to the orange as opposed to the orange being brought in by a simple, large Farallon plate. And I think Ivana, who I see is here again, Ivana might have a link. I kind of forgot. Ivana, could you put the link to that Henderson thing that you stitched? Is that on a YouTube channel that you have? Could you link that to everybody? Which I don't have handy right here. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. God. All right. So, still have more than 800 people. It's time for some live Q&A. This ought to be good. Thank you for being with us for this marathon session. It's only the beginning, I think, of totally grasping what we're talking about here today. But we won't have, 5 more Karin sessions, so this will have to be it for a while. Oh man, I'm down to 20% battery on my laptop. That's another reason to quit. Okay, let me find us here. Pop the live chat out like a boss. And try to answer a few questions. Valerie at 10:34. Oh, that's 1 minute ago. We'll keep going back to that animation, man. Somebody said they really liked the animation. Show it again. I've already shown it twice, but again, maybe Ivana can help us find some of that. Valerie, if the mantle remains as ribbon candy in the core, does it cool the core? I'm going to know very little about how to answer these lower mantle questions, but I don't see how that would, even though they're huge slab curtains, Valerie, I don't see how that would affect or help cool the core. You're aware that there's a liquid outer core and a even hotter solid inner core, but I don't think we know how to answer that, but I don't see an obvious way to do that or an effect on the core. Eric, do you know what the original longitude of the eastern slab wall? That's a good question. I don't off the top of my head. Let's see, we're in Ellensburg, we're at 120 degrees west longitude. I guess maybe there's longitude on one of those maps. I mean, there's the 2013, so Karin's got a research record. I'm not going to grab all the papers that I printed out, but basically her first major effort was in 2007 or 2008 with her I don't even know what I'm talking about, with her 3D tomography stuff. And then the real bomb in the marketplace was the 2013 paper, where she and Mitch are laying this out for the first time to a general audience. And I don't still have a good sense of if that was just largely ignored or people were absolutely ticked off immediately. But that was kind of in the face of the native arc business. And so they kind of, as I understand it, in 2017, another major paper talking about a suture, Mitch and Karin, incorporated the native arc into the story so that there's plenty of eastward subduction both before and after this westward subduction story that's the centerpiece of the discussion. Why did I get into that? Oh, maybe some of those maps have longitude, like pure longitude of that insular arc as it was fixed, but I'm not sure that, oh, the breeze picking up when it's 31 frickin' degrees? It's too early for this. Gary, I thought both sea floor and continental plates both floated on upper mantle. Yes, Gary, tectonic plates are rarely simply just ocean plate or continental crust. There's combinations of both. In the case of this discussion, there are plenty of ocean plates that are small and 100% ocean crust. And again, we're crunching or destroying or both many of these former ocean basins, which is a real mind bender, as Jerome was fond of saying. So yes, we have these lithospheric plates that are riding on top of stenosphere, which is down below. Toughen up. Does the Coriolis effect play in somehow? I don't see how. ATS, how do hotspots interact or not with subducted slabs? Well, to be honest, ATS, thank you for the question. It feels like this tomography stuff kind of came out of nowhere, independent of Karin's work. Like people just were suddenly, like Jeff Tepper and others were suddenly talking about this slab curtain underneath Idaho. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, we had this US array for the last 15 years. Where have you been, man? Talking to me. It's like we know some stuff underneath, and we're trying to figure out if it's subducted Kula or Farallon or something else. And that dealt with slab windows and slab rollback and other things that I was just starting to wrap my mind around, which is a more recent story. So I don't know how many, 20, 25 of you, 30 of you emailed me, low power mode. Oh, crap. Are you still? I'm on low power mode on my camera. Are you still here? So I gotta wrap up soon. Many of you emailed about the article on the resurrection plate. Thank you for that. That's tomography as well. But we're not talking about the resurrection plate here today, or the Kula plate, or some of these other younger diving plates. That's a story related more to the chalice magmas and other things that I was kind of focusing on until this summer, and now I'm into this older time frame. Eventually I'll get back to the chalice story and talk about resurrection, etc. So I don't know how to answer your question about hotspots interacting, except to say that according to Karin type folks, hotspots are real, hotspots are fixed. Now we're realizing these slab walls are fixed, and it's a question of how a drifting plate over a hotspot is too much for my brain at the moment. Thanks for the question. I'm scrolling down to live because I only have a few more minutes left. Doug, seems like another J. Harlan Brett's level of acceptance of new ideas. Hopefully this will be better. That's interesting, Doug. You remember the Baja BC thing, which we haven't even discussed yet, was really marginalized and still is marginalized by most mainstream geologists who just don't understand the details of the paleomag world. I fear it's the same story here. I don't understand how they're getting all this data from the lower mantle, so therefore I'm just going to say it's baloney. And J. Harlan Brett's is a different kettle of fish, but yeah, the history of science is full of this, right? If you have the data, you got to have the data. You can't just have the idea. You can't just have an idea. Many I see here have the wonderful against the grain ideas. You got to be a trained scientist to actually collect the data, and Karin is one of the best, as I understand it. You got to have the data to start. But then if you have the data and it's robust and it's long-lasting and it's combined with an old-school bedrock guy and they have a coherent story and you're still just saying it's all a bunch of baloney, then I think you got to look in the mirror. A couple more. Dutchman, but why, if ocean floor floats because of being less dense, I suppose, why can't it sink? I don't know the context of that. Bob, why are the subducting plates not melting into the mantle? Too much pressure? Yes, that's the easiest way to visualize it from my point of view. It's hotter as you go deeper, but the pressures also increase, and so there's some phase situations there. I'm scrolling back now. Man, it's cold out here. I'm whining now. Julia, sinking curtain encounters something to stop its sinking action, and curtain above continues to sink and bends back on itself. My question is, what does it hit that makes it stop sinking? I have the same question. Karin, where'd the apple go? I can't find the half of the apple that have my little things in, but Karin's main slab, I think, is between 1,000 and 2,000 kilometers down, and 2,000 is not the base of the lower mantle. So I'm a little fuzzy, Julia, like you are we really sinking the frozen yogurt? Is it piling up on the true base of the mantle? Or do they not have the resolution that far? But is that the thought, that we're getting all the way down to the core? But then the outer core is liquid, so why is it piling up on a liquid? I don't know that. Maybe somebody does here. This is too fun. A couple more. I see why I'm getting cold. The sun's going behind another tree. Smiling Llamas asks, what happens at the junction to make the switch from east to west subduction? That's a great question. That's how we'll finish. I don't know how to do it. I'll just do it verbally, maybe with my hands. So if insular is here, remember it's fixed, and we've got our frozen yogurt piling up underneath. This is the insular, Wrangell and Alexander. It's out at some specific longitude out in the Pacific. And here comes, is this right for you? This is correct, isn't it? I'm looking at it backwards. Here comes North America, and we're doing westward subduction with this ocean floor connected to my hand, right? And then eventually, now insular is accreted 100 million years ago, and now, I'm going to move it back. I'm going to start again. So here's insular right here in the frame. Here comes North America with ocean crust connected to it. We're subducting, you got it, westward subduction, westward subduction, we close the ocean, boom, 100 million years ago. Now insular is accreted with Western North America, and it's hooked onto North America now, and there is the beginning of the subduction eastward of the Farallon Plate. That's my current understanding on what we're talking about. Okay, I got to go inside and warm up, and a toast to you. Suppose my hot water's cold. Here's to you for sticking to the end of what has to be the longest live stream that we've done since St. Patrick's Day. Here's to Karin and Mitch and many other scientists through the history of science who compile amazing sets of data and have the courage to present it, even though it's probably ugly in the short term, with the old guard clinging to their lifelong views. Here's to us regular folks trying to make sense of complicated material, and if presented properly, is possibly digestible. And of course, here's to your health, the health of your parents and your grandparents, the health of your children and your grandchildren, everyone in your family, everyone in your community. I think it's official. The next time I see you, it will be Friday, whatever date that is, this coming Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to the San Juan Islands. We're returning to bedrock. We're returning to field data. We're returning to our story. But a little sneak peek. The San Juans and many of the terranes within the North Cascades are the result of colliding North America with the insular superterrane. It's stuff that got caught between North America and the insular superterrane. That's why we did this show before we went to the North Cascades. Hopefully it worked. Thank you for joining us. I love you, and goodbye. Lower mantle tastes great. Less filling, tastes great. This episode of Nick from Home brought to you by Utopia Frozen Yogurt, right across University Way from the campus of Central Washington University. Goodbye.